This video will talk about the theorem that's called the triangle sum theorem, and it's typed up at the top of the screen. The angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So that's the theorem that we're going to work with. We're going to solve a couple problems, and we will get into some where you're solving some equations. So I'm not going to go super in depth on the algebra behind that. I do have some other videos that will show you how to solve equations. So look for those if you need some help with the algebra. Okay, so if we look at our top triangle here, we are told that this angle here is, let's see, 66, and this one here is 80, and we need to find the third one. So there's two ways that I'm going to show you to set this up. One is to use an equation. I feel like that's always a good place to start because once we get into the algebra, that might be the best method to tackle these problems. So our equation is literally just from the theorem itself. If the three angles add up to 180, we're going to call this triangle X, and we're just going to set up the equation. So one angle is 66. If we add that to one of the other angles of 80, and we add that to the third angle, notice I have three things that are adding together. It's the three angles. They have to be set equal to 180 degrees. I'm going to build the wall like I normally do when I show algebra equations. On the left-hand side, we have two like terms. 66 and 80 are like terms. We're going to add them together. So that is going to give us 146. And I copy the plus x because we haven't touched those yet. I now need to bring the 146 across to the right-hand side, across that wall that I built. So to do that, we have to actually undo. The 146 is originally positive, so that's why I'm subtracting it. All right, and what I do to one side of the equation, I must do to the other. Over on the left-hand side, they cancel. All I have left on that is the x. Copying the equal sign, flew back a little bit. I need to borrow, so that will give me 34. So that's kind of the longer way around it, which might feel a little bit too much in the beginning, like too much work because you already can figure it out quicker. But this method will help you when we get to the algebra on the next screen. Some of you guys, I'm sure, just said, hey, I already have two of the angles, and you added them together and said that they total 146. So you might have just jumped right into the main math, which is to subtract them. So that's just another way to give you the 34. And again, it is a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. Let's go to the bottom triangle down here. Same thing, we are given two angles. One of them is 40 degrees, one of them is 100 degrees, and I might call this X or Y or whatever variable I want to use. So again, we have to add up the three angles. 40 is one of the angles, 100 is another of the angles, and X is the third angle, and they have to add up to 180 degrees because that's the property that we've just learned about triangles. All right, again, I'm going to combine my like terms. 100 plus 40 gives me 140. And so now I need to bring that 140 across the equal sign, across the wall. The 140 is positive, means it's being added, so I need to subtract it to remove it from the left. And I also need to subtract it from the right. On the left-hand side, all I have left over is my x, and 180 minus 140 gives me 40 degrees. All right, and again, if you had plugged it in, does it work out now? 100 plus 40 plus 40 does equal 180 degrees, so we do know that we're correct. All right, and whoops. Next screen, we're going to look at this triangle, which is a little bit heftier. It has more information. We do know all three of the angles, but notice that one of them is not a concrete number. It has x in there. So our job is to find what x is. So we're solving for x here. So we're going to use the same property. We're going to add this angle up here with this angle and with this angle, and all three angles altogether have to equal 180. So one angle is 80, one angle is 50, our third angle is x plus 60. When we put plus signs between all three of those things, the property tells us it has to equal 180. All right, we have lots of like terms here. 80 plus 50 plus 60. Notice they're all on the left-hand side of the equation, so I can just combine them. 80 plus 50 is 130, plus 60 is 190. So I'm just copying. If you can kind of if you don't mind writing down your steps, it's a much better way to go. I call it having good math housekeeping. It just keeps you anchored, and it really eliminates the chance of making careless mistakes. My next step is to get the x by itself. I need to remove the 190. The 190 is positive, which means it's being added. So I need to subtract it. What I do from the left-hand side, I have to jump over here and do it from the right-hand side. And it does feel weird in this problem a little bit, but I got a negative number for my x. It's not saying that the angle itself is negative 10. It just says that x is negative 10. So if we go back up to our triangle and we say x plus 60 is this angle, we now know that x is negative 10. So negative 10 plus 60 means that this angle is actually 50 degrees. And we can double check. Do our three angles add up to 180? Well, 50 degrees plus 50 degrees is 100, plus 80 is 180. So yes, it does add up to 180. All right, one more. On this one, I would suggest maybe copying down the problem and then set up the equation and try solving it all on your own. And so hit pause after you actually could hit pause right now and copy it and solve it, and then come back and hit play and see if you got the right answer. I will mention that this symbol here, if you don't remember that, tells us it's a right angle, which means that it's 90 degrees. So just get used to seeing that. You'll see it a lot in triangles. And if it helps, I like to mark up my picture. I would actually write the 90 right inside there. And we're going to go through the same theorem property that we know, that one angle, which is 5x, plus a second angle, which we know is 60, plus our third angle, which we know is 90, has to add up to 180. So our three angles all together add up to 180. Build my wall. I do have some like terms here. 60 plus 90 is 150. I need to bring the 150 across my equal sign to the other side of the equation. It's currently being added, so I need to undo that. So I'm going to subtract. And 180 minus 150 gives us 30. And that is equal to 5x. Our next task to get the x by itself is to get rid of that 5. The 5 is multiplying with the x, so we undo that multiplication by dividing. On the left-hand side, the 5's cancel out, leaving us with x. On the right-hand side, 30 divided by 5 gives us 6. And again, you could go back up here, and it says that angle is 5 times x. Our x is 6, so 5 times 6 is actually going to give us 30 degrees. So let's check. If this is 30, 30 plus 60 is 90, and 90 plus 90 is 180. So we are good to go on that.